Hi, my name is Adam Lebech. I'm head of e-government in the Danish government in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and the Interior. I'm going to talk about big data in the public sector, the next e-government affair. I'm going to talk about the potential for big data in the public sector. I'm going to talk about the Danish government strategy on big data, and I'm going to sum up in the end with some key takeaways. The Ministry of Economic Affairs and the Interior is responsible for public sector modernization, and we're working on general government policy on modernizing the public sector. I'm going to start out with a report from McKinsey Consulting 2 years ago, where they analyzed the potential in big data in the public sector. They found that there could be a potential as high as 250 billion euros in the public sectors in Europe from a better use of big data, roughly equivalent to 0.5 percentage point of annual productivity growth, actually more than we calculate in the Danish government in the plan towards the year 2020. In the public sector today, we're working on big data already. Let me just start out by saying that I'm taking the same definition of big data as the McKinsey report, which is a relatively broad definition. We have a good policy on data in the Danish government, dating back from the late 60s, where we introduced single identifiers, the CPR and CVR systems that are in universal use across all public authorities and that clearly define individuals and companies. This universal infrastructure allows us to do a lot of stuff concerning data transfers between public authorities and technology solutions for big data. We also have an eID infrastructure on top of our single identifier infrastructure, and this infrastructure is also in universal use in both the public sector and key private industries such as banking and finance. And it's also used by pretty much all citizens. More than 4 million use the eID, and 3.7 million today use it for public sector services as well. And we also have a tradition of widespread accessibility of data across all levels of government and key industries. Let me give you a few examples what we can do today. Income tax forms fully pre-filled for most people, using relevant information not only from the public sector, but also from bank accounts and mortgages and so on. So what people actually have to do is pretty much accept what is already pre-filled. Health data and medication data are also relatively advanced. We have data sharing across most public authorities in the healthcare sector, but also in the private sector, such as general practitioners and pharmacists and so on. And digital communication with the government is increasingly made compulsory for citizens and businesses, both e-government services and also digital mail. The Danish e-government strategy, the last 4 e-government strategies since 2001, have been based on a joint cooperation with the municipalities and the regions, the key decentralized levels of government in Denmark. And this is pretty unique solutions for introducing e-government services. It means we transfer data across all levels of government in the public sector. And we have a very strong focus since the start on increased use of data in public sector across all sectors and layers of government. Let me give you an example. One of the things we're working on in the new strategy is how to use big data to fight fraud. Entitlement fraud and erroneous payments are estimated at between 5 and 10 billion Danish crowns annually. And controls today are primarily based on manual and non-structured processes. We have 3.5 million notifications generated each year, for instance, when citizens change addresses. We have made an analysis of the potential for big data and other solutions in this area, and estimated potential savings of 2 billion in this area alone in annual savings from better data screening. Solutions, efficient management of notifications and changes, for instance, when people change address, better use of data in this connection. Risk-based controls using automated algorithms and data mining, so we can check out suspicious behavior, computer-generated, and also redesign of government legislation and services using existing data and data definitions. This includes automation of administration, which I'll just briefly go into, because one of the key issues we're working on is how to fully automate key areas of administration and government. Means we can use, if you can use existing data in public registers and data definitions, same data definitions across different kinds of for instance, entitlement services, we can automate a lot of the processes in case processing. But if we can go one step further and use objective administration, where we remove the need for manual case processing through simplification of legislation with minimal or no need for manual assessments, we can fully automate solutions. And we can, for citizens, you can get immediate automated responses. For instance, you do an online application, you get an immediate response from the computer. The computer does the decision making without any actual persons being involved. And we're trying to move this from some areas where we have it already. For instance, we introduced it in the digital land registry, where simple registrations are fully automated. You get an immediate response. To working on administration of payments, where we are working on simplification that allow automated responses or almost automated responses in housing benefits, pensions, and so on. Another key area we're working on in the e-government strategy is improved use of basic data. We already have a good policy on basic data in the public sector, but we can get much better. How do we get better quality of data, and how do we get better distribution of basic data across government authorities? You use a lot of copy registers, but we would like to use the same key quality data across government. So we made a strategy for this area specifically, where we also work with the joint management of basic data across government authorities and levels of government. And it's also in cooperation with the municipalities and regions, including the hospitals. So we have all parties on board in this area. We're also working on open data. One of the key aspects of the strategy is opening up data for private companies to create value-added services on top of government data. For instance, we are freeing up geospatial data, property and business data for free use, so you can do smartphone applications, for instance, based on government data. One of the next phases of e-government we're working on, we believe will be very important, is digital welfare. So far, we have had a lot of success going towards better e-government solutions in basic administration, you could say. What we want to do is take it to the next level and work on using e-government solutions for the welfare services in health and education and social affairs and elderly services and so on, where actually we spend most of the money in the public sector, but with relatively little technology. So how do we radically change the use of technology in these basic sectors? This is one of the key aspects of a new strategy we're working on, which we'll launch this summer for digital welfare. And we also focus a lot on better use of data across government authorities for better services, for case processing, business intelligence, benchmarking statistics, and a lot of other purposes. For instance, in the healthcare sector, which is a public sector in Denmark, as you know. And we also focus a lot on the empowerment of citizens and welfare services and increased use of data from citizens' own devices. We have a bring your own device strategy. We would rather want to work with citizens, putting citizens in the center, using their data, using their devices, rather than government providing the solutions, whether they're different from what citizens see benefit in themselves. One of the key challenges, of course, is how do we balance privacy rights and data access? So this is one of the key aspects we're working on, how to do next generation privacy rights management. So let me briefly sum up some of the key takeaways from this presentation. I believe that big data will transform public services and increase government productivity in the public sector dramatically in the future. It will also increase service quality and citizen empowerment, for instance, in the welfare services areas I just mentioned. We believe that in the Danish government that automation of administration will increase towards full automation in some areas and more efficient use of data based on the same data definitions. And again, across all levels of government, so it's not going to be solutions for the state sector alone, but for the state, the regional, including hospitals and municipalities as well. And third, welfare services from healthcare, education, social affairs, and services for the elderly will experience huge productivity gains based on better use of data. And this is one of the areas, for instance, social affairs, where we have seen relatively few productivity gains because we have relatively little investment in efficient solution and technology solutions in the public sector. This concludes my presentation. You're welcome to contact me if you have any suggestions for government policy in the big data area or any comments on my presentation. I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to present some of the ideas about big data that we have in the Danish government. Thank you.